Welcome to LearnLogicPro.com. Today we're going to look at the loop browser. So if when the arrange window is open, on the right hand side you have the media button, so click on that. And sometimes it defaults to the loop browser, sometimes you have the bin, the library, or the loop browser. Okay, so the loop browser, what is it and what's the deal? So it's essentially where all the Apple loops or Apple loop file format all stay. So if you're adding Apple loops or you installed Apple loops or third-party Apple loops, this is the user interface to basically browse through those loops. Now, down in the grid, you essentially have all the loops by instrument, genre, or mood, as you read here. And so if you go by instrument, you're going to go to bass, and there's bass. Now this is somewhat of a filter system, so if I click bass, you notice everything else grayed out. And if you want dry bass, that is jazz, you'll notice that these are only the jazz bass lines that are available. And when we're in here, you notice down here we have blue and green Apple loops, and the blue ones are essentially someone's recorded an actual instrument, recorded it into the system, and like a tape deck. The green ones are MIDI, so when you bring them in, it opens a virtual instrument, be it the sampler or sculpture, that is being triggered by MIDI to play that part. Also in here you see the tempo of each part. Now, because they're Apple loops, obviously the tempo doesn't really matter. When you bring them into the timeline, whatever the arrange tempo in is, these will match automatically to those to that tempo. However, if you're going from an extreme tempo, say 20, 30, 40 beats per minute difference, you may start to hear strange artifacts as the audio files are slightly stretched or compressed to follow the tempo in the arrange. You also have the key of each Apple loop. Now there is a way in Logic to record the key in Logic. I'm going to show that in another movie, and then the Apple loops will track that actual key. It's a very interesting trick, and you'll notice one of the other videos will explain that in greater detail. Each loop has a number of beats. You have 16, 8, 4, whatever it may be, is how long the actual part plays. Here we have a tempo match. So here, if it's 120 beats per minute, obviously this matches 100%. Now you can check this as a favorite if there's a loop that you like and you want to refer to or you use more than once, a shaker, a conga, or something like that. You can check it as a favorite, and here in the favorites option, that loop will show up. Now once you've chosen a loop, you can simply just drag that thing right into the timeline, and when you drag it into an area that's down here, it essentially creates a whole new track. Now if it's an audio track, because it's blue, it drags into an audio file here and represents it blue. If it's MIDI, you notice when you drag it in, it's actually going to open up the instrument. Now in this case, it opened up a channel EQ and a bass, which is an ESX24 instrument. Now there is one trick though. Now if I take this green one and I drag it up onto this audio track, even though it's MIDI, it will convert it to audio automatically. So if you're used to working in audio and you don't want to work in MIDI, you can simply just drag that right up. Now if I change the tempo of this session to whatever it may be, in this case 990 beats per minute, these Apple loops automatically change to the tempo. It's something that's just kind of rubber banded audio, if you will, but it just stretches and compresses to the appropriate tempo. Back in the loop browser, I'm going to go ahead and reset this. Now there's some other things here. We've got view, show all. Now here, if you add any extra Apple loop libraries, you can just filter out an entire library. Here I have a GarageBand library, and if I select that, this will only show me the GarageBand content. Okay. Here you have filter modifications for the actual signature. What is the signature of each of these Apple loops? You can view this in a kind of like a column view, which if you're associated to the Mac OS, this is very similar to the column view, and you can use the up and down and left and right keys to go through that very quickly. This is the grid view where you see all of the files again in this grid view. And these are effects. Now, there's a lot of content that's loaded in, jingles, there's sound effects, stingers, there's all kinds of really cool effects that are also added that you can add in if you're scoring something, or even if you want to add some noise or some rain or thunder to a track. You'll find these in the effects section. You can also find the specific scale by changing this option. If you want to find things that are only in minor, it'll show you just what's in minor. So we're going to go back to the audio. Now you also have a search window. If I want to find just basses, and you hit enter, it's using a spotlight system to essentially find all the basses. So this is the Apple Loop browser and how to add Apple Loops and how the Apple Loops work in Logic Pro.